let's get started. Thank you everyone for joining us for tonight's Lexicon, bite-sized language intros with tonight's featured host for our program on Tagalog, Jose Ping Bayani. Lexicon is meant to provide an introduction to language and provide some basic cultural and historical backgrounds. The IRC is a nonpartisan, apolitical organization that provides a platform for greater understanding of international topics and how they intersect with the Kansas City community. For the most enjoyable event for all involved, please mute yourself if you are not speaking. If you choose to enable your video, please make sure you are in a well-lit area free from distraction. You can enable and disable these features at any time in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. If you would like to connect with us, please feel free to log on to our website, irckc.org. This will be available in the chat box. Thank you again for joining us. Now I would like to give the floor to tonight's featured host, Jose Ping Bayani.
Hi all, how's everybody doing? I see some familiar faces and a couple of new ones. We're gonna try to cover as much or maybe as little as we can for the time allotted for the session. And I'll be sharing pretty much a slide presentation that has the content of tonight's featured language. So without further ado, I think I'm going to start sharing the first page right here. Hold on a second.
As a reminder, as we get started, if you're not speaking, if you could please mute your microphone, that would be wonderful.
Okay, is it showing up on your screens, guys?
It is. It might be a little bigger if you do the from beginning button at the top.
There you go. All right. Okay. I thought first of all to put the fingertip there with the Filipino flag. So double way to introduce the flag and to make it, you know, unique, because what makes us unique is our fingerprint. Today's session, we will cover pretty much all these things that's on the list. We're going to take a quick look at the country and its composition, because you can't speak about the language without looking at least at the background of the country and the people behind that language. And then we're going to take a look at the ancient Philippine script. As a kid, I've always wondered how and why, amidst all the countries in Asia, everybody had their own scripts and characters and way of writing things, but the Philippines never had such a thing. So I was wondering what made us so different. We were always using the Roman numerals and the Latin text. We're going to go from the Philippine script to the current alphabet and guides to pronunciation. And we're going to talk about the language itself, history and development, some grammar and features of the language, words that have crossed over into English. And following the guide from IRC, they want to know some prominent people who speak the language. So we've included some of that. And then we're going to listen to the way it sounds. I'm going to read some lines from our national anthem. And then it's your turn to speak the language. I've prepared a short conversation. And when we get there, you can choose either the black or the red speaker, or you can do both. And finally, we're going to try and write. I'm going to ask you to maybe get a piece of paper and try to write your names using the old Philippine script. So that should be interesting. The more adventurous of you might even want to have that tattooed on your arms. I know a couple of my nieces and nephews have done that. And then some Q&A and final words. All right, so here's the country. From those of you who are from the Philippines, this should be normal fare for you. For those who are not familiar, the Philippines has more than 7,000 islands and islets. And to use the words of one beauty contestant from the Philippines, she said, "Did you want the number on high tide or low tide?" Because some of the islands do disappear as the tides go up. We are in the Southeast Asia part of the world. The capital of the Philippines is Manila, as you can see my pointer here, which is in the big island of Luzon in the north. And then the second biggest island is down here in Mindanao. And all this middle portion is what's called the Visayas. A lot of beautiful islands in that middle portion. And with the sheer number of the islands, it is no surprise that there are many languages and dialects. Growing up, we were told that they were all dialects, but now even further research have said that they are distinct languages. There may be some dialects, but all the others are languages of their own, and giving a number between 120 and 170. With the different islands, there will bound to be different ethnic groups. And with those ethnic groups will, of course, come the languages that they speak. The main language is Tagalog, which according to the data from 2010, comprises the biggest group at 24%. And as you can see from the graph, the other ethnic groups share a little bit of the pie. I'm sure there are other languages that are not written here, but they're included in the other here, the light blue portion. Even though we have the native script, even that has its own variations. We will take a look at that later on. This is the Philippine script right over here. And the term we use for that is baybayin. Baybay is to spell in Tagalog. At one point, it was referred to as alibata, but that has been discontinued. A lot of the experts say that is not the right term to use for it. It is widely used in Luzon up here, and there are no indications that it has made inroads into the southern part of the Philippines, which is Mindanao. There is a big evolution of it amongst the different islands, and we will take a look at that in the next slide. And we'll also take a look at how it became supplanted by the Latin alphabet further down the line. I wanted to add down here at the bottom, I found this baybayin numeral, something that I just came across within the last couple of weeks while I was doing research for this. And what's striking is even with the numbers here at the top, they showed how similar it is to the numbers we currently use today. So like if you, here's the number 2, if you add the red portion, then it comes to that. And 3 is pretty much the same. And 4, if you add a line, and it becomes the number 4 as we know it today. So I just thought how wonderful to see that way down the line, there really is a distinct connection amongst all these. These are the variations I was speaking about. The baybayin itself has its different ramifications depending on which island of the Philippines or which province you come from. The Tagalog baybayin has 18 letters. The Ilocano, which is north of Manila, has 17. Pampango has 14. And while I was doing the research on this, I felt how apropos for Pampangos to have, as you can see here, absent are the letters F and H. So that explains why native Pampango speakers really do not have these 2 sounds when they speak. We always get around it, but there's that explanation right there. Okay, moving forward. This just proves, this slide, that this ancient script has been in use way before the Spaniards came. This document is a Christian book brought about by the, written by the Spaniards. And in this section, you can see baybayin being used. And then they have the Spanish translation from the friars. And down here, you have the one of the local Filipino languages. So in one document, you can see living proof that it was in use, and somewhere down the line, we just kind of like lost it. Over on this side is the One-Real Stone, which was discovered by students in Masbate. And again, as you can see over here on the right side, you've got baybayin. God knows what they're talking about, but I'm sure down the line, people have and decoded some of these. So I call this the Tug of War because from the baybayin, the Western style of writing replaced our native script, because when the Spaniards came in 1521, all through the colonization for 400 years until 1898, they were trying to Westernize and teach the local Filipinos the Western style of writing. And that's the alley where we lost the script. And when the Americans came after the Spanish-American War in 1898, American educators, the Thomasites, reinforced that Western style of writing in conjunction with establishing the Western style of public schools. And English took a foothold, and even the language itself kind of fell by the wayside. English became very much the norm, the lingua franca for most of the Philippines, used in official discourse, official language, newspapers, medium of instruction, and the native languages were relegated to being spoken at home or like street language. However, in about the 1990s, the early 2000s, we had our troubled times with martial law and a surge of nationalism and going back to the roots, gained a foothold, was resurrected and actually accelerated. And that's when interest in discovering baybayin and the other languages came to the forefront. And now, apparently, I read this one in 2018, the Congress of the Philippines actually is wanting to use baybayin as the national writing system of the Philippines to help protect, preserve, and conserve it, to maintain the identity of the Filipino. But even with that said, English still remains as a unifying language throughout the Philippines, because even in places where Tagalog, the national language, is not spoken or understood, English will be available for people to communicate, as can be gauged from all the postings of the tourists that go to the Philippines. And that's one of the things they say is a pleasure to experience in the Philippines, because getting around and communicating with the locals is never an issue. Okay, now let's go to the language itself. When you say Tagalog, which by the way is a coined word from Taga-Ilog, Taga means coming from, and Ilog is the river. So in Luzon, there's a lot of river systems. So I would think that the language of Tagalog is referred to as the language spoken by the people who live along the riverbanks, Taga-Ilog. Now, this is the traditional Tagalog. This is not the one spoken now because a lot of contemporary Tagalog have Spanish influences and a lot of English words thrown in, and some of the other dialects and languages of the Philippines, their words have also been infused into Tagalog. So the real spoken language, when you say Tagalog, is a mixture of the traditional Tagalog, Philippine dialects and languages, and then loan words from English, Spanish, Malay, Chinese, and a whole bunch of other influences. Simple loan words that the Tagalog does not have equivalents for is computer, hamburger. So when you hear Filipinos talk about, what are you going to have for breakfast, for lunch, they'll say hamburger because there's no equivalent word in Tagalog. Spanish influences, we have words like silla, which is the same as Spanish for chair. And our greeting of kumusta is, pretty much the equivalent of como esta, which is Spanish. Chinese influences, we have xiu pao, which the Chinese have, xiu bao. Ate, which is the name we use for the eldest daughter, comes from the Chinese achi. From the Malays, you've got nasi, which is our word for rice, as it is for the Malays. And bilanggo, this one surprised me. Bilanggo in Malaysia means chain or shackles. And bilanggo in Tagalog means a prisoner who is indeed shackled. Okay, let's go to the language itself. We have 5 vowels, and they are pronounced a, e, I, o, u. A, e, I, o, u. And then the consonants are ba, ka, da, ga, ha, la, ma, na, nga, pa, ra, sa, ta, wa, ya. So when we say it, we go abaka, dae, ga, ilama, na, nga, o, para sa ta, uwaya. In the lexicon guide, it said, are there any sounds that might be different for non-native speakers? And this letter, NG, is probably the most foreign or alien to a non-speaker. It's pronounced as ng, ng, like you would say tongue, ng. My brother-in-law is Japanese, can never say it. He always wants to say the NG separately. So like this word, he would always say bunganga, but you really pronounce it bunganga, which is the word for mouth, bunganga. We have marks, diacritical marks, which serve as guide to the pronunciation of words. And the pronunciation is important because the same word with a different pronunciation can mean 2 entirely different words. The kind of marks we have are pahilis, which is an acute mark over here. Paiwa, which is the grave, a reverse slash. Pakupya, which is the circumflex or a caret. And here are examples of words with those marks, giving rise to the kinds of words that contain those pronunciation marks or the lack thereof. The first kind of word in Tagalog is called malumay. That word has no mark, and the accent is on the second to the last, the penultimate syllable. So like this word itself, malumay, malumay, and it has no mark. And the word that tells you what kind of word it is actually is an example of the word itself. So malumay. Other examples, binibini, So slow. Binibini, second to the last syllable. This is the word for a young lady. Tahimik, which is the word for quiet. Tahimik. This is the word for afternoon. Hapon. Hapon. The next kind of word is mabilis, which in Tagalog means fast. And the word itself is fast, mabilis. And the accent is this one, the acute. And it tells you to put the stress on the last syllable of the word. So just like this one, mabilis, the accent is on the last one, mabilis. Maganda, maganda. Marupok, marupok. And this one is hapon, hapon. If you will notice, this and this one are the same, but this says hapon. You pronounce it hapon, and that is the afternoon. If you say hapon, that is the word for Japanese in Tagalog. So if you say magandang hapon, maganda is beautiful or good. Magandang hapon is good afternoon or beautiful afternoon. If you say magandang hapon, then you're saying beautiful Japanese. So big difference. The third kind of word is malumi, malumi. And the accent it has is paiwa, paiwa. And just like malumay, the accent is on the second to the last syllable, but it has a glottal stop, a catch in the throat. Okay, here are some samples. Pako. You hear the catch? Pako. Bata. Bata. Bahaghari. Bahaghari. So pako. Bata. Bahaghari. And the fourth kind of Tagalog word is called maragsa. Just like mabilis, it's pronounced fast with the accent on the last syllable. But just like malumi, it has a glottal stop as well. So, pako, pako, kalamansi, kalamansi, hinto, hinto. Now look at these two words. They're the same spelling. One is pronounced pako. The accent is on the second to the last. Pako. This one is pako. The accent is on the last syllable. They both have a catch in the throat, but the meanings are the same. Pako is a nail. Pako is a fern. So again, just to highlight the point that the way you pronounce the words can give you an entirely different meaning. Now, if you go to a Tagalog document, you will most likely not see these diacritical marks because people pretty much know how to read the words. And if they don't know the meaning, which particular meaning is being used in the context, you will know whether they want to say a nail or a fern from the context of the sentence. Okay, going on. The basic structure of the language, there are two of them. The first structure is where you have the subject first, and then any other action words or modifiers will follow. The second type is where you have the verb, the action word first. Here are examples with the subject first. Ako ay kakain na, which means I will eat already. Ako, subject, I, connector, kakain, action word, na is a modifier. So subject, verb. Oops, sorry about that. I have to go back. And this example is where you have the verb first. Kakain na ako. Kakain na ako. Which, if you translate in English, sounds like a Yoda English. To eat already will I. Okay, both are correct. Just a matter of how you want to say what you want to say. Another example. Siya ay pumunta sa palengke. He or she, we have the same word for he or she, siya, went to the market. So subject, verb, object. And here's the reverse. Pumunta, action word first, siya, subject, sa palengke, object. So in English, he went to the market. In the verb first, it'll be went he to the market. Again, both are correct. Just a matter of preference or how you want to say it. Third example, si Maria ay masipag. Maria is industrious. You can say masipag si Maria. Industrious is Manila, Maria. So 2 ways of constructing your sentence, both are correct. Just a matter of how you want to say it. Just a brief note here. I remember growing up, we even had our own way of diagramming. I don't know, the Filipinos in the audience probably remember doing that as well. You know, in English, you diagram a sentence with a straight line, you put the subject, put a bar, predicate, and then the object. In Tagalog, we have a big letter E. You put the subject on top, then the verb in the middle, and the object at the bottom rung of the big letter E. So just an aside. Moving forward, some examples of Tagalog in sentences with names, subjects. Our word for our pronouns are ako for I, you is ikaw, and somebody else other than you or me is siya. So that can be either he or a she. So ako, ikaw, siya, I, you, he or she. And the plural forms of that are tayo, that's we, I and my friends. Kayo, you and your friends. Sila, he or she and their friends. So ako. And then you've got a connector, I, which is like your am or are or is. And then you've got your modifier or your verb. So if we construct a sentence, we go ako, I, masaya. I am happy. You say tayo, we, ay masaya. We are happy. Ikaw ay masaya. You are happy. Siya ay masaya. He or she is happy. Sila, them, they are happy. You notice the word doesn't change. This is the present tense of, let's go to this. Masaya, by the way, is an adjective. This is an action word, which works the same way. The verbs in Tagalog have 2 forms. You've got the form, and you've got the mag form, which we will look at later. The root word of this is sayaw. So the present tense, you would put the sumasayaw, sumasayaw. The past tense becomes just the sumayaw. And the present tense, the future tense is sasayaw. Sumasayaw for present, sumayaw is past, sasayaw is future. So just to show you the conjugation of the Tagalog verbs and the nouns and pronouns. Nouns you can put here. Si Ashley ay masaya. Ashley, our host, is happy. Or si Ashley ay sumasayaw. Ashley is dancing. Okay, start dancing, Ashley. There you go. Okay, let's take a look at just real quickly on the mag form of the verb. The root again is sayaw, but instead of saying sumasayaw, you say nagsasayaw. And instead of saying sumayaw for past tense, you say nagsayaw. And for the future, instead of saying sasayaw, you will say magsasayaw. So again, if we have more time, or maybe like an 8-session Tagalog, we can go more in depth with these forms and do more exercises. But this is just to show you, there are 2 ways of constructing a sentence in Tagalog, and B, there are 2 forms of the verb in Tagalog. So subject first or verb first, form, mag form, etc. Some unique things about the language. Many of at least the traditional words, the words themselves describe or tell the meaning of the object of which they are the name. For example, salumpuit, salumpuit. The word is a combination of salo, which means catch, and puit, which is your rear end. So salumpuit, which is our word for a chair, is actually what catches your behind. So salumpuit. And here's another word, bahag hari, which is the word for rainbow. Bahag is a G string. Hari is a king. And in my mind, this word probably came about because in the days of yore, when there was royalty, only royalty could wear colors. And the local folks could probably only wear brown or one simple color. So when they saw this colorful streak up in the sky, it's like a big piece of a G-string in color. So bahag hari, the G-string of the king, is up in the sky. So very descriptive. The words in traditional Tagalog also are very precise. When we say rice in English, we have to modify it with cooked rice, stale rice, burnt rice. In Tagalog, there's a word for each of these. Palay is rice unmilled. It's still in the fields. Bigas, it's been harvested and milled. Kanin, it's been cooked. It's cooked rice. Sinangag, it's been fried rice. Tutong, that's the bottom, the leftover rice at the bottom of the pot, which can be burned. And bahaw is leftover rice. So see how precise that is? You don't have to qualify what kind of rice. The word itself tells you what it is. I remember my mom, we were at the doctor, and the doctor said, "What kind of pain are you experiencing?" And my mom said, "How do I say mahapdi or makirot?" These are different pain words in Tagalog. Whereas in English, you would say it's a throbbing pain, it's a itchy pain, or whatever. So in Tagalog, it's a bit more precise. Like some other languages, we have respect indicators in Tagalog. We use po and opo, ho and oho. When you're speaking to somebody to whom you want to give respect, you always say po, opo. Like somebody asks you, have you eaten? If it's to an elderly person, you will say, kumain na po kayo, as opposed to just saying, kumain ka na. When you use these, it's a great sign of respect for your elderly or people in authority. Another example of position and at the same time honorifics, giving a hierarchy within the family, are the words we use for the eldest child, eldest son, eldest daughter, and so on, which is not unique to Tagalog. Chinese have it, Japanese have it. So eldest son is kuya, eldest brother. Eldest sister is ate. Diko is second in line. Ditse, second daughter. Sanko is third, and Sanse is third daughter. So kuya, Diko, Sanko are the sons. Ate, Ditse, and Sanse are the daughters. This one is, I just included it because Filipinos have the propensity of avoiding exact words. Like when you say, "Can you come?" and instead of saying no, they see that as confrontational or too direct. So they will use words like baka or siguro. In English, the equivalent is maybe. But for most Filipinos, when you hear baka or siguro, it's a dead ringer for they're not coming. And somebody is calling me. Hold on a second. There you go. We never really tell time in Tagalog because it takes too much time. By the time you're done telling time, you're probably a minute late. Let's say, what time is it now? 5:35. So if people ask you, what time is it? Or anong oras na? We'll answer in English, 5:35. Or we'll answer in Spanish, alas 5:35. Because if we said it in Tagalog, we will say, ikalima ng 35 minuto makalipas ang ikalima ng hapon. That's a mouthful. That's a mouthful. So we just go 5:35, 5:36. I was asked to share any hand gestures that Tagalogs might have. We don't have hand gestures, we have lip gestures. If you have Filipino friends, we are up to say like, can you pass me that? And then we point with our lips. Growing up, I also used to laugh at this with a eyebrow talk. You greet friends by raising both eyebrows. You go like this. And that's like a hi. But they said if you only raise one eyebrow like this, you're being flirty. So another cultural idiosyncrasy. I just wanted to include this because we've always reveled in this. We keep saying Tagalog is the shortest sentence in the world. If you say ba 4 times, it's actually a sentence. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. And that means, is it coming down? Ba 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 ba. And you respond, ba 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 na. It is coming down. Ba 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 na. Okay, and if you want to have a chance of saying some fast words, here, katakataka sounds like a machine gun, which means it's amazing or marvelous or something. Katakataka, it's amazing. And this one is the word for useful, kapakipakinabang. Say that, kapakipakinabang. I bet you my Filipino friends can say that either. Okay, now with so many different languages within the country, one of the problems would be the same word having a different meaning, even inside the Filipino languages. Here's an example, bukid. In Tagalog, bukid is a farm or a field. If you go in the middle of the country, bukid is a mountain. So there you go, same word, different meaning. Ant. Ibon in, oh my God, I'm sorry. Langgam in Tagalog, in Cebuano, I got this interchange. Langgam in Tagalog, it's ibon in Cebuano, the same word, okay? Langgam in Tagalog is kangkong in Ivatan. Langgam, which is ant in Tagalog, is manok-manok in Tausug. And langgam, which is ant in Tagalog, is ayup in Kapampangan. Now, kangkong in Tagalog is swamp cabbage. And manok-manok in Tagalog is a chicken-chicken. And ayup in Tagalog is a generic term for animal. So one word, langgam, several meanings. Finally, just to throw some humor, the word for egg in Tagalog is itlog. In Kapampangan, the word is ebon. And we've got this running joke in the Philippines that if you cross the bridge that separates Bulacan, which is the Tagalog-speaking area, into Pampanga, which is Kapampangan-speaking, your egg becomes a bird. Cross the river, fastest hatchery in the world. There you go. Okay, some Tagalog words that have crossed into English vocabulary. Abaca, which is a species of banana plant that's used to make ropes, Manila hemp. Boondocks or boonies, which is coming from the Tagalog word bundok, which is mountain. Capis, which is the kind of shell, like this one. Kutis, people will laugh at this, but Filipinos especially. Kutis comes from Tagalog kuto, which is headlights. And of course, yo-yo, which is the game on a string. Surprisingly, the English Oxford Dictionary apparently adds words to their dictionary. I don't know how often, but they want to make sure and emphasize that English is a growing, living language and that it grows with different applications of usage in different countries. And you can Google this, English Oxford Dictionary, and you'll see many more words that have crossed over into the English language. Famous people who speak Tagalog, you can Google this as well. Foremost, I would say is Carlos P. Romulo, the first Asian president of the United Nations General Assembly, probably the best statesman we've ever had, and a bunch of other people, Manny Pacquiao, Lea Salonga. If you're into beauty pageants, you've got the last couple of Miss Universes, and other Filipinos who have Filipino genes. You can all see that as you Google. Let's, okay, Ashley, just let me know if I'm running short. Okay, just to get a sense of how it sounds, I'll read a couple of lines of our national anthem. Bayang Magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiil. So, just to give an example, a flavor of how it sounds. Your turn. Hey, pick red or black or both if you want, and just pronounce as I point. Okay, here we go. And these are the translations. Here we go. Kumusta ka? And then somebody answers, mabuti. Ikaw naman. Kumusta ka? Mabuti rin. Kumain ka na ba? Hindi pa. Tara, kain tayo. O sige, see the time here? 12:00 na nga eh. Gutom na ako. Saan tayo kakain? See the Tagalog? Low budget ako ngayon. I don't have much money. Punta tayo sa Spanish, karinderya ni Aling Maria. Ay, oo. Mura doon, pero masarap ang pagkain. Tagalog, English, okay. Mauna ka. Tara. So there, a little conversation. Okay, with the few minutes that we have left, if you want to try it, you can try and see how your name will be written. I gave Evan and Matthew a surprise, and I wrote their names in Tagalog script. So here's me. As you can notice, all of these end with a, the a sound. To remove the a sound and change it to an e or an e sound, you put a dot above the consonant. To change it to an o or u sound, you put a dot below it. And to remove the vowel sound altogether, you put a cross below the consonant. So ha sa will become ho se because of the dots. And this is Evan's name right here, who is on cue joining us right now. This is e, ba, n, the cross removing the na sound. So Evan, and this is ma, te with the dot, Mateo, Matthew, Mateo. And this is again, hey, Ashley, cool. Again, this is something you will find. Yes. Ashley. Wow. You can Google this, by the way. If you look for Baybayin, you will get this graphs, you will get a hits, and you can do it yourself. Since we may not have enough long time to wait for everybody. All right, questions? Before we say these last three words, if there's any questions, let's go.
I saw on one of your slides that you talked about a dirty kitchen. Can you explain what the dirty kitchen is?
Okay, in the Philippines, you've got the formal kitchen, mainly for show, mainly for show. So the daily cooking happens in the dirty kitchen. That's where you chop up the meat and the fish, you scale them and so on. That's where you pretty much wash the dirty dishes and so on. So that's the dirty kitchen. There's another word there that I was explaining to Evan, and it's the word bold. In the Philippine context, it takes a different meaning when you say somebody's a bold actor or a bold actress. It takes the meaning of you are in an X-rated role of the movie. Kind of a strange, huh? What else?
Another question, are there any idioms in the Philippines? Like in the United States, we have it's raining cats and dogs.
Oh, I'm sure there are. I don't know if there's one for translation for that, but I'm at a loss right now. But we have a lot of, we call them bugtongs, where some of them are rather funny. Some may be offensive even, so I'm not even going to say them. Oh, okay. Like if you're overly jumpy, okay, we will say, para ka naman trumpong kang karot. It's, you look like a spinning top that's jumpy.
That's a good one. Wonderful. Well, if no one else has any questions, we can go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you everyone for joining us for tonight's event. And thank you again to Jose Ping Bayani for participating and hosting us. We appreciate your time and your willingness to join us for this conversation. If you enjoyed tonight's program, please feel free to support the IRC by texting IRC to our Donate to Give number. It's 816-844-6032. This number is also available in the chat box. Please feel free to check out the rest of this week's programs, which are listed on Facebook and the website, and the document that Evan shared earlier today. Thank you again, and stay well.
And this is the Filipino way of saying goodbye. As you can see here, you put your hands across your heart and you say, thank you.
Thank you. Paalam.
Yay,
All right.
Ping.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Very nice.
Salamat and paalam.
Congratulations. Thank you. Salamat.